Hi, everyone. So excited you're here today to join us for Two Truths and a Lie, Writing for Email Edition. And there might be prizes, but I'll cover that in a moment. So what we'll cover today, and it's going to be game show style, is writing best practices specifically for email. We're going to cover some common email lies because you all know there are a ton of them out there. And we're going to kick them to the curb and we're going to be like, nope, that is not accurate.
That's right. And then at the end, I'm going to come in and do some rapid fire, that's the word, rapid fire writing tips. Very difficult to say, April. Try that 10 times fast. Rapid fire writing tips. Yes, did it. Anyway, that's going to happen at the end.
So excited because you are like a font of knowledge. I've learned so much about writing for email from you over the years, so I'm excited. Okay, so real quick, who are we? We're SparkPost. Hopefully you know us, but if you don't, we help senders reliably reach the inbox with powerful solutions to help people like you in the trenches, creating great emails, plan, execute, and optimize your email programs. And for those of you that are writers, which I hope all of you here are, because according to Anne's book, everybody writes. We actually have some pretty cool solutions to help you in the email production process if you're a writer, to be able to be pulled in at the right point and to allow you to edit work and make it easier. We also have some great analytics products that will help you to understand if your emails are performing properly. And we have some cool competitive intelligence tools that will help you see what others are doing, because sometimes it's fun to just see what's out there. So we've got your back with some exciting products. And you may have heard that we got acquired last year by a company called MessageBird. And I love their mission. They say that they empower consumers to communicate with your business in the same way they communicate with their friends, seamlessly on their own timeline and with the context of previous conversations. That's like the dream scenario. So pretty excited that we're part of the MessageBird family to be able to help that dream come alive for a lot of businesses out there. And most importantly, the consumers that you all are marketing to. So without further ado, good to meet you. Hey there. I'm April Mullen. I'm an email geek. I work here at SparkPost as the Senior Director of Brand and Content Marketing, but I've been in email for a long time. I've worked on the brand side, agency, been in MarTech, doing email work for a while, and I'm a co-founder of Women of Email. And I am so honored to be here as one half of the A team. Get it? April, Anne. And I'm joined by the brilliant Anne Hanley.
That's right. We deemed ourselves the A team just because for so many reasons, not just the April and Anne thing, but I love working with April. I love working with SparkPost, and so yeah, we're gonna have some fun. So yes, if you don't know me, I'm Anne Hanley, Chief Content Officer at Marketing Profs, author of 2 books, including Everybody Writes, and in fact, I do believe that everybody writes. And I'm also a massive fan of email. You know, like April, I've essentially built my own career on email, you know, first at Clixy, the first company that I founded, and now at Marketing Profs. You know, email is truly the heart and soul of our organization. And so to me, you know, writing and email together, the opportunity to talk about both is just chef's kiss. So yeah, we're here.
They need to have an emoji for that. I want to use it like daily.
Yes, I know, it's true.
So let's get into the game. Let's play. So we're going to play a game called Two Truths and a Lie. And some of you may be familiar with it, but some of you might not be. So I'll explain it very quickly. It's a game where 3 statements are given, and you all get to pick the one that is a lie. And we're going to play this game by collecting your responses via polls that we're going to throw up periodically throughout this presentation. And we'll let you decide which of these email content rules is incorrect. And I highly encourage you to participate in the poll because our most active pollers will receive a copy of Anne's New York Times bestseller called Everybody Writes. And we're going to be sending that out to our most engaged people. So ask questions, do the polls. There is an incentive to participate in this amazing book, which I love. So, Anne, are we ready to do this? Are we ready?
We are ready to go. Yes.
All right. Let's go into it. The
Okay,
first
so
one.
yeah, so our first set of content rules, our trio of content rules is these three, and your job is to pick the lie. April's going to put up a poll in a minute, but the three rules are: number one, long emails are too challenging for an audience. Number two, short, skimmable emails are best. And number three, subject lines matter a lot. So April's going to put the poll up, and go ahead, friends, and vote. Tell us what you think. Long emails are a challenge. Number two, short and skimmable rules the day. Or subject lines matter. So which one of those is not true is what you want to vote for. So April, what do you think? What do you think is going to, I want you to predict. Do you think that they're going to guess the lie, everybody here today?
I don't know. I don't know. It feels like this might be a softball, but then I just don't know. Oh, look, we're getting a lot of polling progress here. I don't know if you can see this yet, so I'm going to give just a few more seconds, but it looks like this was not actually the softball that we thought it might be. Everyone has different answers. All right, I'm going to close out the poll and show the results here on the screen. Just takes a moment. Hold, please. Our fun GoToWebinar is still taking its morning coffee, I think. All
Trouble
right,
waking up today.
Yeah, so 51% said long emails are too challenging for an audience, and 42% said short, skimmable emails are best. Should we tell the group which one is the lie?
So which one is the lie? Yep, 100%. That is a lie. In fact, long emails are too challenging for an audience. I guess it was kind of a softball for some people in the audience anyway. I don't know. I think that I think that this is absolutely 100% a lie, but before we get into the lie, let's talk about the truths first, and let's walk through those.
Perfect.
So the first truth is that subject lines matter a lot, and in fact, this is 100% true. The subject line is, of course, one of the first things that your customer will see when they get to their inbox or when they're looking at their inbox. And April's going to go ahead and walk you through a little bit about how she thinks about subject lines.
Yeah, so I kind of think of subject line and pre-headers as a bit like the welcome mat of the inbox. If you think about the user experience where someone is in their inbox, it's overwhelming, there's all this content, and how do you kind of roll out that welcome mat to make them feel like they want to engage and come into your house, if you will. And so I want to talk about a few examples here. So on the top, you see two subject lines that we tested at SparkPost, and we found via this test and in others that the email community loves emojis. Our audience loves emojis. So while it may seem like a simple change, it can drive a lot more engagement by standing out a bit more in the inbox. And then when you get to the bottom, on the left side, you see some pre-header text. And so you see a tiny bit of real estate there, that light gray text next to the subject line. And the one on the right shows the discount offer. And the second is a BarkBox email with the dog's name in the pre-header, Alfred. I just think these are so clever and so much fun. And in fact, I think the one on the left is super interesting because the actual offer isn't even in the subject line. They put it in the pre-header. I think that's a little daring, but kind of cool. Hopefully people noticed it. But these are important because they help people understand what is this thing and why should I be engaging with it.
Yeah, I think that one on the left is really interesting to me too, for the exact reason that you talked about. I think our default as marketers is to lead with your strongest offer, right? But instead what they did is they flipped that a little bit, Home Chef did, and they teased it. They teased the offer. We've got an offer you can't refuse, and it's like, what is that offer? Pray tell. And the pre-header text, shares it right there. It sort of invites you to click into it through the pre-header text. So I think that's a really effective use of pre-header text. The other thing that I want to say about pre-header text before we move on is that, in my experience as a newsletter publisher, it's the kind of thing that your audience they'll start to build a relationship with you almost through that pre-header text. So I'm guessing that in this case, Home Chef is using that pre-header text strategically, and that this isn't the first time that they've actually put the offer in the pre-header text as opposed to the subject line. And I do the same thing with my own email newsletter, which I publish every other Sunday. And the way that I do it is that I usually find a way to just like speak directly to the reader in the audience. And I for a long time I used to write in the pre-header text, hey you're doing great. Like, because when especially throughout the pandemic, and as I launched this email and as it started to grow and in terms of readership throughout the pandemic, people just like to hear that little like shot in the arm. And it also, of course, is very much my approach. Like I want to lift marketers up. And so I want to remind them like, yeah, you're doing great. So a few months ago, I started teasing that a little bit and I started playing with it and experimenting, and I thought, well, like I've been using you're doing great for a long time, and here we're sort of coming out of the pandemic, and I thought maybe I don't need to say that anymore. So I started switching it up and doing things like, hey, you smell nice today, which of course it's an email. I don't know that, but I'm guessing.
I love that.
And just throwing in some just other fun things, and I actually got notes from people saying, hey, like, what happened to you telling me that I was doing great today? Like, I come to rely on that. And so it's a small thing, and I share that anecdote only as a way to remind you and it will to remind everybody here today that that pre-header text is something that people probably pay attention to more than you think that they do, and something that Home Chef has certainly clued in on, and something that has been my eyes have been open to as well.
Absolutely. I love a good pre-header. I pay attention, and I think a lot of people do. It's valuable real estate.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so the way that I think about subject lines as well is that, and I call this this is our A-team hot take. I think that subject lines do matter. Like they matter an awful lot for all the reasons that April just shared. But over time, I think that your from line matters more than your subject line, because I think if you're approaching your email marketing and your email newsletter the right way, the way that you are using that opportunity to build the relationship with the audience, with an individual reader who is opening that email, um, I think that they will open you no matter what if they start to trust you and like you and feel some affinity for you. And so I think the from line matters a whole lot.
I do too. And I have, however, I want to caution, I've seen a lot of people out in the space talking about you should test your from names. And it's cool to test things when you're launching them or, to periodically test. But I really start to get nervous when you've conditioned an audience to recognize a certain type of subscription from you as being named, like, for example, our newsletter is the Post by Spark Post. People know that is our monthly newsletter. And so I kind of caution people to not change those very often. It's okay to be clever periodically. It's okay to have an email that's from an individual that customer might have a relationship with. But I wouldn't go being clever in testing this too often. That's just kind of, I think that's a hot take for me, because again, I've seen a lot of stuff out there about people saying, oh, you should test the subject lines. But I, as a brand person, as somebody who really believes in the power of consistency in branding, like once you condition people to understand what this is, I'd be afraid that people would miss it and not know that it was the newsletter, as an example. So just be careful. I mean, with all things email, it depends. I feel like that's our favorite phrase in this industry.
From line, you mean, right, April?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to just share a quick story about why I think the from line matters so much, and to build on what April is saying, to not mess around with that too much, but to really think about your email marketing and your email newsletter as the opportunity to connect directly with one person at one time, and to think about why it's a tool for relationship building almost more than anything else. Yes, it's direct response and it's all the other things that we love about email, but I ultimately believe that it's a relationship builder, and that is really why I believe so strongly in the front line. So I track a metric that I completely made up. Anecdotally, I track it, and it's called my OSR. The OSR is the open to save rate. So what you're looking at here is two examples of the kind of feedback that I get with my own email newsletter. On the left there, you see reader Gary Stockton, who takes all of my emails and puts them in a special folder in his inbox. And this is something that he shared on Instagram. He wrote, "This newsletter rocks. I save them all." It's a little stalkery, I gotta tell you guys, but you know what? It's you go, Gary. I just like try to keep tabs on him at all times so he doesn't turn up in my driveway or something creepy. I'm kidding. Gary is a great guy. And on the left there is an email that I got just a few weeks ago from Mary Morris. She said, "I'm still waiting for just one of your newsletters so that I can enjoy then delete, as opposed to feeling like she has to save everything for future reference." And I'm sharing this these with you, not to, brag about this, but to think of, to maybe reframe how you might be thinking about your own email program. Think about that open to save rate. Are your emails so good that your audience, that your customers will actually save them, will use them as for future inspiration, that will use them in some way? Do they value them to the point where they're saving your emails? And I don't think that this is too high a bar to think about when you think about your own email program, even if you're using it as a direct response vehicle. I think thinking about, are people going to save this? Are they going to love it so much?
I love this. And this even challenged me to think a little bit differently. I think as marketers, we get caught up in like wanting to track everything. And sometimes things aren't always trackable. And I know you're gonna talk more about like how you track these metrics, but they're not always totally trackable, right? But
Yes.
like it challenges you to think differently. Like if you could measure this, what would you do to drive toward this? I think instead of optimizing toward the traditional metrics.
Right, right. The traditional metrics being like, open and click rates. And I found for my own email efforts, that just didn't quite go far enough for me, because again, I'm looking to build a relationship with an audience, one subscriber at one time, and I want that subscriber to feel truly valued when they're on my list. And so these are things that I track. Again, these are completely made up metrics. Like I totally made these metrics up, but what I love about them is that it calls me to like a higher bar, right? I want to think about, are people saving my emails? The OWBR, I call it my open to write back rate. And what that means is when my email comes into their inbox, do they hit reply and write back? Are they inspired to say to me anything like, I liked this email, I didn't like this email, I don't like how you said this. Like I get the negative stuff too, but I think the open to write back rate is something that I value, and because I want to hear back. I don't think of the email as just a one-way vehicle. I think of it as very much a dialogue between me and my subscribers. The other thing that I look at is what I call the RR, or the resub rate. And this is when somebody will either change jobs and I'll get a note from them saying like, "Hey, I just like resubscribed because, that email is going away and I have a new role." Or it's closely related to the TUPER rate, which is the trust you with my personal email rate. That's when I get emails from people who maybe subscribed at work but have decided that they are going to invite me in that sacred space known as our personal inbox, where we sort of protect that with boundaries that are like high with barbed wire, right? Because we don't want a lot of junk in there. So
Yeah.
these are three, including the one I talked about a second ago, the OSR. These are three plus the OSR are four things that I think about. And in terms of how I measure them 100% anecdotally. So I can't say to you that this is a setting in my email program. It absolutely is not. But it does help me consistently create content that will delight my audience. And it calls me to this sort of higher level of performance.
This is amazing. And actually the open to write back rate, when people reply to your emails, that actually helps you with deliverability. So
Yes.
like, I love just the idea of like people being able to, let's make it a two-way dialogue. Why does it have to just be a one-way broadcast? Let's open the door for more people to reply. And the resub rate and the trust you with my personal email rate, these are amazing. And so, confession, we do not allow for personal emails at SparkPost. We have company domain that we collect because we're in the business of selling to business. But we had so many people asking, can I use my personal Gmail? That I'm like, we need to probably change how our architecture is set up, where we can start absorbing those more personal email addresses, especially if people are asking. That is such a huge, like, you've made me think this is actually like this is a really good thing. We should be embracing it.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
So more discussions on that internally. Okay, so now the truth, the short skimmable emails are best. So yes, short skimmable emails are best, especially when there's a CTA to get the full scoop on the landing experience. So you don't have to have everything in the email. Get things at the landing experience, more detail, bullet points, creativity and design. This is all like a great way to just not make your subscribers have to engage in a lot of friction. Just give them what they need and don't make it too much work. I know there are exceptions though, and we will definitely talk about those when we end.
Yes, we will.
So I want to talk about a couple emails here. Thank you to our friends at Really Good Emails for always collecting, really good emails. And these two examples, I think, are perfect examples of how you can take a lot of complex information and put it in an email in a way that is skimmable and reduces the friction and is very succinct with the content, but doesn't actually compromise the integrity or the meaning behind the email. So the one on the left is a B2B example with Vimeo. They're literally putting their packaging and all of the capabilities that you get with each package right within the email. Not a ton of words to have to do that, using imagery, the grids, and making it really easy for someone who might be in the market for their products to skim and see exactly what it is that they would want to buy, and actually giving specific CTAs for each of those. They're almost set up like lanes. And then the email on the right is a B2C example from a company called Hers. It's actually called Hims, but then they have a Hers brand, and they sell skincare prescriptions. And this email is so, like, I love it so much. I've actually used it in several presentations. So they're talking about several things here. So first of all, they're sending it at a time when the person is in the process of using acne medication, and they might be having some issues. Some people call it the purge. So their skin might be breaking out and in a worse condition than when they started. And they might be freaking out a little bit. Like, I bought this product and now I look worse. So they literally put this slider bar at the top of the email to kind of be like, you are here, like a map orienting you where you are in the process. And they tell you in big font, trust the process. And then they have this really empowering paragraph that really kind of tells them, we know where you are. You're flaky, you're irritated, you have more pimples, like things are really bad right now. And then they have a list of things that the consumer can do to help minimize this and get through to the 90-day point, and telling them, on the slider bar, I don't know if you all can see, but it says stick with it, day 14, stick with it. So a lot of information here. They're telling you where you are in the process, the problems you might be having, how you can manage them, but they do it in this really good skimmable format without like giving a ton of information. Or they're giving a lot of information, but they're doing it in a way that doesn't create a lot of friction, I should say.
Yeah, and not using a lot of words either. That's what I really love about this. The other thing that I really love about it, though, is just like, look at the customer empathy right there. Trust the process. Like, we know this is how you're feeling. And I think about, almost any purchase that we make, even in the B2B world, where your reputation is on the line, where you're committing to these big purchases. And there is that pain, isn't there, of of trying to integrate a new solution or product or technology into your marketing team, your tech stack, whatever the case may be. And so think about how we can take the approach that hers is doing here and apply it to our own businesses. I think this is a really fantastic example of just what I would call is like pathological customer empathy, really understanding what it's like literally inside your customer's skin in this case. But I think we can all take something away from that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that the idea of short versus long is, short can be good. I think as April just showed us a second ago, but I think that short versus long is in some ways this sort of false choice, right? Because I think in so many ways the true answer is far more nuanced, and that short versus long is really rooted in something more important than how much attention your customer will give you, because really what it's rooted in is what's the goal of your email. So if your goal is to get somebody to hit the buy now button, or to click through to read an article on your website, or to watch a video, like whatever the case may be, like then that's a moment that you want to sort of grab their attention and move on. So that would be a short email in my mind. So if your goal is something different though, like engaging with a customer directly in the inbox, telling them a story, giving them lots of information that you really want them to absorb, then that's a longer email. So purpose defines goal, and then let your goal define your format. What is long, what is short, I think leads back to, or can be traced back to goal, and that the goal traces back to the purpose. So that's how I think about short versus long. I don't think it's an either or situation. As April said, I think it depends. And what does it depend on? It depends on your purpose and your goal ultimately. That's driving the format.
Absolutely. And long emails, they can be challenging for your audience, but we think that's a lie. And so get out your magnifying glasses. And we're kind of kidding, but not really, because these are newsletters that both of the speakers here today send. So you'll see the one on the left is the Spark Post, the Post, and then you see the one on the right is the amazing Total Anarchy newsletter. And as you can see, they are not brief. Collectively, they have tens of thousands of subscribers. And I think our newsletter, in fact, I know our newsletter is our highest engaged communication that we send. And Anne, you probably see similar. People love to engage with the newsletter of our respective organizations. And so, like for Spark Post, we just relaunched it with a philosophy of both, the reason it's so long is we relaunched it with a philosophy of rounding up the latest content we've launched, because customers have told us, what are all the things you've launched recently? And they may not see some of the things we're posting on social, or they may not be always skimming our blog, but they said, we want to round up. So we started rounding up content. We share upcoming events because we were told, our customers said, we really want to know when events are coming up. And then a thing that we added that we were very cognizant of is we added an opener that really kind of sets the tone for kind of how we're feeling, maybe the context of what's happening in the industry or the broader world. The idea is that we wanted to connect on a human to human level and not have sterile kind of marketing speak. And we are actually playing with the tone and voice of our communications, because we think of email as being a way to build community and speak to our audience like the people that they are. We send our emails on the last Friday of the month because we wanted to go on a business day, but we also quite like this idea of like casual Fridays, casual attitudes feel. Feels like on Friday, like things just get a little bit more loosened, although I think everyone's casual every day now with COVID and working from home. But engagement's been great. It's been through the roof. And Anne, I don't know if you want to say anything about Total Anarchy and kind of your send cadence and any details you might want to share on the length.
Yeah. So I mean, I think what to say about it. Let's see. So I mean, I send it. Yes, it is long, as you can see there. What I think is interesting in terms of this graphic, though, is like look at all the imagery in the Spark Post email newsletter, and look at mine, which is very text heavy, but yet lots of white space. And the reason why it tends to be more text heavy is because I typically am sharing a story there. It's not necessarily curating links from elsewhere, but telling a story about something that happened to me and related to our worlds, the marketing worlds, the place where we find ourselves these days. So yeah, not a lot to say about it. I guess I send it every other Sunday, and I picked that cadence because honestly, it's the best. I would love to do it weekly. I don't have the time and energy and stomach for that right now because this takes me about 8 hours to put together. So
Mm,
it's an enormous amount of time,
yeah.
not only for me but for anybody really. And so I just don't have the capacity to be able to do that with any more frequency than every other week. And I chose Sunday because Sunday morning, strategically as well, because I wanted to let people know that like this is an opportunity to engage with this content while you're sitting around in the couch sipping coffee and in your jammies. Like I literally imagine somebody doing that. That doesn't mean though that they have to access it then, because according to my analytics, like there's a whole other group of people who probably don't check their email on the weekends at all, and they're there. So the second bump that I get in terms of readership is first thing Monday morning. So that's a great thing about email, right? It's there whenever you're ready for it. So
I love that. I love that and how you see the initial Sunday crowd and then you see
mhm.
engagement continuing into Monday. That's amazing.
The Sunday crowd. I should do T-shirts.
You should.
Okay. One thing about long emails, though, and I think the reason why they are a lie is because the long emails that I love and the emails that I will often save as well, are longer, but they tend to not feel long, and that's the key. Like the graphic that April shared a minute ago of the Spark Post email, very graphic heavy, like lots of things going on in there. It's not just like a massive block of text. And the same with me, maybe not as many graphics, but lots of white space. And so I think the key to making a long email work is to not make it feel like a long email. So I want to give you a masterclass in one slide of not of how to make a long email not feel like a long email. The first thing is to anoint what I call a relatable anchor host. Find somebody on your team or someone within your organization or a freelance, like find somebody who can write in a way that is very relatable and anoint them as the anchor host. Nothing drives me more crazy than when I see something come from an organization that is from like newsletter at and has a very like buttoned up kind of robot-y feel to it. I think it's one of the things that I think is so true in this post-COVID world is that we are used to seeing ourselves and each other in our home offices. We're used to communicating in a much more, I would say, transparent way, and so I think that should be reflected in your email newsletter in 2022 too. And when I talk about an anchor host, what I mean is that somebody who is like, as April said a minute ago, who is like introducing the content, who is like welcoming your audience just like a host would do at a party or on the evening news. Like think of it like that. Um, I mean, certainly I do that with my own email newsletter, but I think there's lots of big brands who do this as well. The New York Times does this with their Sunday email, or sorry, their morning email that comes out every single day.
Mhm.
It comes from the New York Times, yes, but there is an anchor host, a guy by the name of David Leonhardt, who is introducing that morning newsletter to you. Anand Sanwal, who is the CEO of CB Insights, he is the anchor host of the CB Insights newsletter. It's a technology newsletter that covers the startup space. Tyler Camella at Toast, a B2B SaaS company here in Boston. He is the anchor host of the Toast email newsletter. And so don't think, well, we're a big brand, like we have, 1,000 people on our marketing team, as if, but maybe. Um, we can't anoint somebody, but you can. Like, think about one person who your audience can have a relationship with. Okay, second thing is, and it's related to number one, lose that marketing voice. Like, loosen up. I think the inbox is the place to have that relationship one-on-one with a customer or a prospect. And so, maybe you'll write your first draft in that sort of like buttoned up marketing voice. Like I think of like a T-Rex, like like, hello, valued customer. Welcome to the email newsletter number 4, like, whatever. But lose that marketing voice. I think it's so important to communicate directly in a human accessible way. Craft matters. Your writing craft matters. And we're going to talk more about this at the end, but spend more time than you think you need to spend on your email. I think the way that you tell stories in there, the way that you craft it, really does matter ultimately to the success of the newsletter. Make sure that your voice is in there in some way. Make it engaging. Like, don't make it just a list of things. Talk to somebody from your point of view. That's the craft piece of it. Create momentum with the newsletter with many things, but story can be one way to do it. That's how I do it. Another way to do it is through open loops. And what I mean by that is, maybe at the beginning of the email newsletter, you introduce an idea or you ask a question, and that idea or question doesn't ultimately be satisfied or fulfilled until, further on into the end of it. But always give your customer or your prospect or your subscriber a reason to keep reading. Think about how do we create some momentum within that email newsletter. Another thing, and I talked about this briefly already, is pattern breaks. I think white space is your friend, especially in an inbox. The last thing anybody wants to encounter in an email inbox is just sort of this wall of text. So I love text, but break it up. Like, white space is oxygen for your words. And the final point I'll make here today is thinking about scroll magnets. And what that is something that you put at the bottom of your email that your audience over time is trained to know is there. So maybe they're not that interested in the stuff this week at the beginning of your newsletter, and that's okay. For the most part, they will always go to the bottom and check what that scroll magnet is. We see this a lot in some of my favorite newsletters. The Daily Carnage is a fantastic email newsletter published by Carney and Company. They're an agency in Pennsylvania, and at the bottom of their email newsletter, which I get in my own inbox every single day, their scroll magnet is a retro ad. Right? It's just always fun thing to sort of check in with, just to see like what the ad of the day is. In my own email newsletter, that scroll magnet is what I call the Department of Shenanigans. And what the Department of Shenanigans is just something that made me laugh that week, something I thought was ridiculous, something that I thought was funny. And so that link at the very bottom in the Department of Shenanigans is usually one of the highest clicks in that email newsletter in any given issue. So think about a scroll magnet that you can put at the bottom of your own email newsletter.
I love that idea. And we just put in a scroll magnet in our newsletter that's a shout out of the best thing we've seen on Twitter from the community. And it's usually something completely off the wall and hilarious. So
Twitter is a great source, by the way, of scroll magnet ideas. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Second round here. Pick the lie. Number 1, content should always align with your email goal. Is that the lie? Or using certain words like free or save all the dollars will send you straight to your spam box. And I'm missing the last one because the poll is now covering it up for me.
You can have fun with CTAs.
There we go. Thank you, April. All right, so vote with which one of these you think is the lie. And April, I can't see the progress, so how's it going on your side?
Oh, it's looking like most people say use words like free or save. Cash will save $signs. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share the results now. Here it comes, incoming. All right. Well, good news, right? Because
what we see is the lie is yes.
Most of you got it.
Smart.
I know. Yay.
So smart.
So CT. Yeah, go ahead, Anne.
Sorry. Well, all right. So let's talk. Sorry, let's talk through the truths first. Um, the first truth here is that CTAs can be fun, absolutely true, and extra actionable. 100%. I agree with this. I think about that A in the CTA, literally calling people to an action that you want them to take, right? And so let's really make good use of that A. Let's make it extra actionable, in other words.
And I have a great example here, another really good emails example, but this is their actual email, featuring the lovely Najma Salam, if any of you know her. But I love how their button, instead of saying register here to watch, it's actually a video, so it would be watch here. They say tune into the convo, like, because that's kind of their style, and it's kind of fun and edgy. Like, that's so much more interesting than register here or watch here. Like, it's fun, and it has that kind of action to it.
Yeah, 2 points that I think are important to know about CTAs, is yeah, exactly that. Like, try to find the most active verb that you can use in your CTA. Like, tune in is something that I can see in my head. Like, I can see what that's like to
Mhm.
tune into something, as opposed to register, which doesn't have that same sort of activity around it. And so if you want to ignite some sort of action from your audience, you want to use the most active A that you can, the most active verb that you can. So that's the first thing that I think about with CTAs. And the second thing is that the CTA, you can flip to the next slide, April. The second thing is that I think CTAs are an opportunity to extend your brand voice. So yes, align your CTA with your brand voice, but also think about it as, really embracing that moment to share your brand voice. So here's an example from Marketing Profs, in which Erin on our marketing team, the CTA there is bye-bye burnout, versus, again, register here, or access the content, or something that's less active. I might even say that she could have said, like, wave bye-bye to burnout, maybe to add a little bit of an extra action there. But bye-bye burnout is also, I think, a really fantastic CTA.
And like, what a payoff, right? Like, register here, there's no payoff there, but bye-bye burnout, I'm there for it. I would like to say bye-bye to burnout, so I'm definitely going to register for this thing. So like, the payoff is amazing. And then here's a B2C example from Etsy. They say wave goodbye to winter instead of shop now. So just really simple changes that help you resonate with your audience and speak to them on a more human level. And you're still driving action, but it's a lot more exciting and engaging.
Yeah, and the empathy there too, right? In terms of like waving goodbye to winter, because this email arrives at the beginning of spring when everybody is so sick of winter. So
Oh yeah.
again, really putting yourself in the mindset of your customer with that sort of extreme empathy for what are they feeling right now? What are they thinking about right now?
Absolutely. Great. So content should always align with your email goal. Of course, absolutely. This is a truth. And Anne, I feel like we just need to go right into this example, because it's just the perfect example of like aligning with the goal.
Yeah, so in this case, I have to tell you guys that this is one of my most favorite emails of all time. This is from Barkshop, and I got this email, like, talk about an open to save rate. I got this email, I want to say like maybe 2018. Like, that's how old this example is, but I literally love it so much. And it's like, sometimes I'll think about it and I'll just start chuckling to myself like an idiot. You know how like you do that sometimes, like you
Oh yeah.
think about something that makes you laugh and you'll just start to, like, you'll be driving down the road or something like that. This is that email for me. So what you're looking at is just one piece of an email that Barkshop sent out. And Carl is one of 4 pets that Barkshop shared that day. And look at the story that they tell about this fat little pug named Carl, right? They say he's 72, but of course that would be in dog years, not legitimately 72 years old. And they give a profile of him, right? Orders lentil soup on a hot day, always keeps a pen in his pocket, lies to his wife about doing his physical therapy exercises. So good. And then the CTA there is fetch so aligned with, sort of Bark Shop. Fetch hip and joint treats for his like painful little joints because he's 72 years old. Um, what I love about this though is that, and I think this speaks to the truth here, right, of aligning your audience with your content, is that this came in my inbox. I had an old dog at the time, my beloved baby girl Abby, who passed away
Mhm.
about 2 years ago. And I loved this so much because you know what I did immediately? I did fetch those hip and joint treats for her. But more than that, like I felt seen. So this is direct response copy. Sure, it's a direct response email, but it also has such empathy for the people who are opening this email, people like me and April, people who are obsessed with our dogs. It's knowing your audience, it's knowing your purpose and your goal all at once. And it also is just a great example, I think, of just telling a quick story in a way that will really resonate with your audience. I mentioned that this was one of four kind of dog personas, if you will, in this email. And each one of them was equally hilarious. So they weren't even using segmentation here. Like they didn't know that Carl was the one who would speak to me the most. There were in the other three profiles, though, had I had a younger dog or a more anxious dog, like they also had profiles that spoke to those kinds of pets and those kind of pet owners. So I think they do a great job here of speaking directly to the hearts and minds and souls of the people who are on their list.
And you just got me thinking, if they had all of those different types of dogs with different problems, or I shouldn't say problems, but like special needs, um, based on what people click on and purchase, you can
Yes.
deduct that they have an old dog or they have an anxious dog. So there's actually like a great profiling opportunity here too.
Yeah, exactly. And a great opportunity for personalization down the road because once I
Totally.
bought these hip and joint treats, it's like, oh yeah, heck yes, she has a Carl. And in fact, I did have a Carl at the time. So
Aw,
yeah,
sweet
perfect.
Abby.
Sweet Abby.
All right, so then diving into the lie that using certain words like free or save dollar sign will send you straight to the spam folder. I want to just at a high level unpack that the reason this is a lie is because a lot of ways that you're determined if you're a good sender or a bad sender is based on your domain reputation. And so that matters so much more than the content you put in your emails. But if you have a bad domain reputation, or maybe it's just not great and it's kind of right there on the line of being caught in spam filters, then content can essentially be the straw that breaks the camel's back, if you will, if you like analogies. But if you have a pretty good reputation, you have a pretty engaged audience that you're sending to, you're likely not going to have issues with content. This just isn't the problem that it used to be 10, 15 years ago. It's all about domain reputation. And so focus on creating really good, engaging content through the tips we're teaching you here and making sure that you're resonating with your audiences. But if you're doing that, content shouldn't trigger it. Having said that, I do want to dive into just a couple points on this slide, just to give you some tips. You can screenshot this if you want. We're going to be sending it out in the guide, so you can get it from the guide. But a couple points I want to talk about is image-only emails can be flagged as spam. So make sure you're blending images with HTML text. And that's also going to make your emails more accessible. Screen readers can read the text. Like it starts to be easier for people that may have some sort of disability. And then the next point I want to make is avoid links that look spammy. So yes, spam filters look to what links point to. So links are important. You want to make sure that you're, hyperlinking. Don't hide links that are not hyperlinked and things like that. And generally follow most of the tips on this list. You should be in good shape. But again, domain reputation is where it's at. So content really isn't super harmful. So use those dollar signs if you're a good sender.
All right. So this is our second to last actual set of content rules. Number one, pick the lie. Okay, so number one, you should regularly be testing. Or is the lie personalization is key and you have to do it right? Or is the lie personalization is exclusively solved with text? So go ahead and vote away. yeah, and then we'll go through them and see where we end up. See if you guys have picked the lie.
All right, launching that poll. Okay, we have 99% so far saying personalization is exclusively solved with tech.
Wow.
Okay, give a couple more seconds and then we're going to close the poll. All right. Okay, sharing the
Oh my
results now.
goodness. That's so funny. I guess this was the softball, April.
I mean, I know.
This warms my heart, I have to say, because that word personalization is such a it's such a I don't know, a trigger word for me, I guess. And yeah, absolutely, it is exclusively solved with tech. It's so many marketing programs and so many marketers that I talk to. I think about personalization as much more of a tech solution than anything else. But I think that personalization is so much more powerful when you think about the Asian second and when you really think about the person first. And so, taking a a personal approach or a personalized approach first to your content, the way you're writing, the way you're crafting your emails, and then think about using technology and tools to extend that personalization as opposed to the opposite way.
Absolutely. So personalization is key, but you have to do it right. And so we have a few tips here. Merge variables. So you want to use them if you have them, but make it feel authentic. Don't put someone's name or company in a way that feels forced, because your subscribers are going to immediately see that and it's just going to feel like it's going to feel awkward. So don't make it awkward. Don't make it weird. Use them in ways that you would if you were talking to someone. And with segmentation, you want to apply that. Write different versions of your emails by product, persona, known interest. Also, segmentation can include deciding not to send an email to a certain person. I think people tend to forget that. And then dynamic content, and building one email that includes alternate content for each zone within your email, or maybe even just one zone within your email. Maybe you can't do it for all, but you can do it for one zone, and making that a lot more personalized. Generously use the word you. So an example, and that's easy. You don't need like any kind of tech or crazy production to do this. So an example I love to give is something like fits you love versus fits our customers love. Don't talk to them like our customers, say you. In the former, that resonates so much better, saying fits you love. And write as if you're talking to one person. And Anne, you had said that. I actually think I learned that from you also, by the way.
Yeah, I always talk about the yous, like, after you've written your email, count the number of yous in your email newsletter. And if you run out of fingers, you're doing great. Like, it can be that simple.
Absolutely. What's our next truth?
Our next truth is regularly be testing and experimenting. And I love the word experimenting in here, because I think we think about testing as, as straight up a technology solution, like let's test the subject line with this segment versus that segment. But I also think having some fun and experimenting with what you're doing through your email program, truly evolving your content to resonate more directly with an audience is also such a valid thing to remember in terms of the strongest email programs. I think do have some element of experimentation.
I love that. And that pre-header story that you told where you changed it and people are like, where's my you're doing great?
Where's my encouragement? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes,
All right.
I love that.
And then the next lie is personalization is exclusively solved with tech. I know you have some thoughts on that, Anne.
Yeah, I think we talked about this. I think the most important thing is to be first in how you write and how you approach your email, in thinking about it from a customer standpoint. Where are they at right now? All the things we talked about here, getting into your customer's mindset, communicating with empathy, using use, all of that kind of stuff, making it feel like it's just for them in their inbox. And again, I don't think that's too high a bar. I think that's how we should be thinking about our email program. And then think about how do we actually, extend that personal approach that we've built using technology, as opposed to the other way around. So yeah, this is why we say that it's not exclusively a tech issue. I actually think that it's also a human connection issue as well.
Absolutely. Okay, we have our last poll. And I'm not even going to throw up a poll here. Let's just be honest.
I would be curious, but that's okay.
Email's not going. We have email is dead. Email is finally dead. Email is really absolutely finally dead. That was a trick question. Those are all lies. Email gets $44 for every dollar spent. It's with third-party cookies going away, IDFA tracking going away, everything's coming down to first-party data. We're seeing companies get more budget to spend in email and to be better with email. So super pumped about the possibility for the channel. And we had to throw in that funny little quip because, we love email. And now, and this is where you got to get your screenshotting thumbs ready. Anne's going to wrap us up with some writing tips to do a little bonus for us to send us off.
Yeah, and I realize that now that it's 11:58, we have 2 minutes until the end of this presentation. I would just invite anybody who has a question to please go ahead and pop it into questions. And I don't know, maybe April and I can figure out a way to answer those questions either through, content on the SparkPost site, or I don't know. We'll figure something out, but we will get your questions answered. So
yes,
if you have questions, please pop them in there. All right. So my rapid fire 10 and a half writing tips. Number one, writing the first draft as fast as you can. I find that most people who say that they have writer's block, or that they feel like they can't just be natural in their writing voice, it's because they're expecting too much of that first draft. So don't stop yourself, don't censor yourself. Just approach that first draft as kind of a big hot mess. Call it the ugly first draft, and just get it out of your head. Write it as fast as you can. This is the only way that I can ever get any writing done, because otherwise I would never let myself sit down, because I find it so painful to write that first draft. Yes, even me. So my antidote to that is just to write it as fast as you can, get it out of your head. But never publish that first draft, right? The beauty of a first draft is that it gives you some raw clay to work with. So make sure that you shape that raw clay into something that's inherently more beautiful and engaging, and that your customers would truly love. Think about the craft. When you think about telling stories in your email, or actually any of your content, it's so important to show what's going on with a product, a service, a solution. Tell the stories of your customers. Show how your product or service lives in the world. Don't just tell me that you have the #1 SaaS product solution for this audience, right? No one cares. Show me how that actually is true. We talked about this already, but writing to one person, I literally think when I sit down to write my email newsletter about one person who I am truly helping that week. And the irony in writing is that the more specific you are, ultimately the more universal it'll be. So write to one person, and so many more people will resonate with that a whole lot more than you probably think they will. Spend time on building subscriber relationships, and this isn't necessarily a writing approach, but it's not a writing approach either. It's also a way to grow your newsletter. Think about, that's why that open to write back rate is so important to me, because when someone writes back to me, I literally will, as much as I can, respond back to them. I want to build those relationships with people who are on my list. Number 6, spark joy. One of the ways that I measure this is to I make sure I make myself laugh at least once in everything that I write, and everything that I publish through my own email newsletter. And you know, that's just a way that it keeps me going. If it makes me laugh, I feel like other people will, who maybe share my quirky sense of humor, will also find it amusing. But I want this email newsletter to spark joy in my audience, but also with me, because no great email is created at gunpoint, right? If it felt like I was creating this and I was hating every minute of it, then the audience would be able to tell. So make sure that it sparks joy and that you are sharing that joy with your audience. My tip for making your voice loose and accessible, and also doing things like catching typos, is to read your email out loud. Like literally sit down and read it out loud alone in your office. Yes, you will sound like an idiot doing that, but you'll feel like an idiot doing it. But it is the way that I catch awkward phrasing, awkward sentences, sentences that are way too long, typos, all kinds of things. It's just such a valuable last step before you ultimately hit that send button. Okay, go analog once in a while. I'm a big fan of when I'm feeling stuck about what to write on my whisper quiet keyboard on my laptop. I will go longhand, or I'll actually start writing on a typewriter, which sounds really like literally an old school
Wow.
typewriter, which sounds ridiculous, but it just sort of shakes it up, like shakes up my brain a little bit. So it's just a nice thing to do every once in a while. Go analog. All right, and finally start that thing that you are not writing, that thing that you are not doing, just start it. And then number 10, finish that thing, ship it. And number 10 and a half, you know what? It's not going to be perfect. Your email that you put out is not going to be perfect. Your ebook, your actual book, anything that you do, like it's never going to quite match what you thought it should be, like in your head when you first envisioned it. My biggest tip is just to forgive yourself and move on. You know, you'll be better tomorrow.
Oh, I love this. What a perfect way to end us. Thank you so much, Anne. You have
Thank
been
you, April.
lovely. And thank you to all of you who joined us for this hour. We will send a recording and a link to download. There's actually a complimentary ebook to this, so we'll send you the complimentary ebook. It'll be in your inbox tomorrow. And yeah, I'll be sorting through looking for our most active people that participated today, and we'll be following up to send you a copy of Everybody Writes. So thank you again, Anne, in the audience. We really appreciate everything and hope you all have a lovely day.
Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.